Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. Today we get to talk about insurance, which is a hotly debated topic amongst Muslim jurists. Of course, again, it's a new transaction. These are one of these things that when we say the word insurance today, the today transaction of insurance, whether it be health insurance, car insurance, life insurance, insurances against travel insurance, so on. I mean, basically everything has insurance. That did not exist at the time of the Salaf, without doubt. So that's why it becomes an issue. What does that mean and how do we deal with it? However, what we do have in the Sharia, like in yesterday's lecture and the previous lecture, we do have a concept of damages and liability, a daman, right? We have a daman. I think the other day in one of the classes I was recording for you guys, I told you about if I rented an animal for you and I used the animal for what it's meant for, and then the animal died, I don't have to pay the damages. But if I took the animal and you told me, by the way, this horse can only carry X number of kilograms, and I put it more weight, and then the animal died or was injured, God forbid, then I would be liable for damages. So the philosophy, falsafa, right? The philosophy of the insurance, which is to protect the other side, does exist in the Sharia. And that's like a little tether that we're going to pull on, inshallah, as we seek to make sense of the modern day transaction, or the modern day concept of insurance. Now, the issue with insurance, there's two issues that I need you to know up front. The first issue is that insurance is inescapable. Khalas, it's a part of life. It's almost impossible to do anything that's a function of modern life, except that insurance is part of the discussion. So it's become a necessity that we have to talk about, and therefore, obviously, our bias is going to be to find a way to make it work. And number two, there is a difference of opinion when it comes to modern forms of insurance. Of course, the lecture notes that I have will tell you that the majority opinion is that it is not permissible, but out of academic, to be faithful and academically honest, I have to tell you that there's another opinion. And we will come to learn that there are other modern muftis that opine slightly different on some of the transactions, the insurance transactions that we're going to talk about. And as I said in the previous class, this is an issue when we talk about modern transactions that we're not always going to be beholden to the majority opinion or to one madhab. Some of the things we're going to talk about, we'll get into it in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, when we say insurance, the Arabic translation of that is a ta'meen. And this is one of those cases where I think the Arabic is important, because this is a translation that actually might help us. Some of the translations of Western terms into modern Arabic have actually been quite wrong. I think I've mentioned to you things like pictures, sawar, which is a wrong translation, printing, taba, which is a wrong translation. Technically, now we accept them as such, but anyway, at-ta'meen is, it comes from al-aman, to be protected, to have protection. So the basic philosophy behind the interaction of the transaction of the insurance is that one side is trying to be protected, and the other side is helping to do the protection. Now that in and of itself, that's a great thing. Allah Ta'ala says, وَتَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْبِرِّ وَالتَّقْوَى وَلَا تَعَاوَنُوا عَلَى الْإِثْمِ وَالْعُدْوَانِ, to work together in good things and not in bad things. It's a command from Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So on prima facie, having that kind of relationship, especially if it's with the taradi, with the consent of both sides, on default, we're going to say that's a good thing. So we're going to see to make it work. However, we have some restrictions in the type of transactions that we are able to have in the Sharia, like gharar, speculation, of course, riba, usury, and things like that. So far so good. The meaning is a good thing, and that's something that we want to help work through so that society has a safety net. When it comes to the traditional fiqh, some of the pictures they're not insurance, so I don't want you to, I'm not going to overstretch it and sell it to you that this is insurance, but that idea of a safety net, communal good, working together, what are some of examples of that in our classical Sharia? Involuntary manslaughter, we have the concept of spreading the blood money from the male descendants. So if I accidentally kill somebody, may Allah Ta'ala protect me and you. Obviously, I have to pay the diya, the blood money, but I can pay the money, can be spread out to the other family members of my brothers, for example, uncles and things like that, so that the burden is spread out, so it doesn't crush me, because it's a high cost. 100 camels, we said, is a high cost, and we can spread that out. So that is my side protecting your side, my side acknowledging the pain and the suffering and extending to your side. This is the Sharia saying ta'awanu, work together. So in this case, my family come together, so it's a way for my family to come together collectively to pay the money that we owe for something like that. We also have the kifala, of taking under one's auspices and protection the fuqara and the masakin, the poor and the needy. وَأَبْنَاءُ السَّبِيلِ, people that are lost or traveling or are stuck somewhere, not able. Al-Gharimin, the people that are in debt. So Al-Fuqara wal-Masakin وَابْنِ السَّبِيلِ wal-Gharimin, these are 4 of the 8 categories of zakat. That's half of the people of zakat, categories of zakat, that is. So that's a way of society taking care of those people. We're not going to let you come to our town and be lost and not have a way home and just leave you. So the Sharia will be like, you can pay your zakah money. You have to pay your zakah money, by the way. It's a fard. And then that's one of the categories. So-and-so is in jail, in debt. Unfortunately, I don't know if this is actually an accurate statistic, so please forgive me if I say it. It turns out to be factually wrong. But I remember reading somewhere that in the past, there was a disproportionate amount of women in debtors' prison. And I think in some Muslim majority countries that might be the case today. And the reason is that the men mess things up. They'll like gamble the house away. Like in America, it was like, they would gamble the farm away and things like that. And there are actually many protective consumer laws and ownership laws between husband and wife in the American legal system that come from that scenario of literally men gambling the farm away. Because America for a long time was an agrarian society. So anyway, that's a tangent. But people that are in debt and they go to debtor's jail, the al-gharimin, or people that are in debt, maybe they don't have to be in jail to be a gharim, but if they are in debt, they are one of the people that can receive the categories of zakah. Right? So this is society's way of reaching out and be like, we're going to help you guys. The fuqara and the masakin, the poor and the needy. We're not going to leave you. So the concept of communal help is embedded in that concept as well. And also, the third example would be the obligation of supporting family members. So, we talked about immediate family, like first degree family members, like your children, your parents, and things like that, and second degree family members. But in general, there's this concept of nafaqah, that you're going to support your family, you're not going to leave them out there. So that's very important, because this is these concepts and the theory behind these concepts are what the modern fuqaha then transfer to their understanding of insurance. So they'll say that one type of modern insurance is a ta'meen at-ta'awuni. It's a mutual beneficial type of ta'meen, type of insurance. If something bad's going to happen to me, if I'm old and infirm, or I'm sick, la qadra, and I can't work, or somebody's has disability, then the insurance company or the community will come together and be like, we're going to help this family out, either to get back on their feet, or we're going to help the family out because the man can no longer work. For example, if it's just a traditional, simple example, that's a great thing, right? That's a wonderful type of ta'meen insurance, and we welcome that. There's another type of exchange scenario of insurance in which there's a pool of money that a community would pool its money, and every month they would use that money to support somebody in the community. I remember when I was growing up, this is something that my mother used to do with her friends and family and female relatives in Egypt, even though she was living in the United States. You would pay, I don't know what the time was, but let's just say $100 every month. So you're out of your pocket $100, 11 months, so $1,100. But then on the 12th month, you get the $1,200 if there was that much in the pool, or however much the pool was. So it's a way of people would finance, for example, very common in Egyptian culture, by the way. I mean, culturally I'm Egyptian, so it's an example I know. Women would the tajheez, they would get married that way. The men can pay for the mahar, and the women can pay for the dress, and you can pay for the home, the furnishing, because those are big ticket items that you don't have liquid cash all the time like that. So these jama'iyat, these type of associations, very common, and it's a type of insurance because it's a communal pool, and then you can expand the meaning of that communal pool to do several things. These two types of ta'meen or insurance are going to be okay, right? The Sharia is going to be like, this is a good thing. The problem is with the third type, which is commercial insurance, right? And that's where the fuqaha start to debate with one another, because then we get into all of these type of considerations. The first two types are more of, they're voluntary, they're like a gift. You can see the direct help of society for each member of society, just like with the examples of the poor and the needy and the people that are in debt, the people that are lost or they can't get home, or your relatives that need assistance, or your children or your grandparents or your parents that need assistance, etc. So those type of things we kind of see they're good, and you're not really asking for anything. There's no dubious exchange of money and an increase or decrease of money in exchange for something that's unknown. Those are all terms that the Sharia does not like. Al-gharar wa tafawud, the excess amount, which would smell like riba. Those two examples don't have anything like that. The problem is in this last kind of insurance, which is unfortunately the main. When I began the lecture and I said we're going to talk about insurance, probably that's what everyone thought about, right? That's the insurance that we're going to talk about, because that's the insurance that we're most likely used to hearing. But when it comes to things like health insurance, which was similar to the first example that I gave, that's going to be something that's going to be, it's a necessity. In some countries you can't even survive without health insurance. The issue that's going to come in the next clip is the issue of the commercial insurance, and one of the reasons is that this is brand new. This is something that really goes back to maybe the 15th, 16th century at most, where it became a European type of way to help with ships, shipping lines and product. So that's where we'll have some of the differences of opinion, and inshallah I'll leave that discussion to the next clip, because I see from my timer that I'm running out, and inshallah we'll continue the discussion. All right, commercial insurance. So I said in the end of the last clip, I might have been rambling a little bit, I apologize, is that we see in the rise of, in Europe, 15th, 16th century, this idea, we're sending ships across the world with cargo, and at that time ships were made of wood. So it's a very risky business. And we're worried about our cargo. We're worried about the ships, we're worried about the crew, we're worried about the cargo that's being sent. So this is where this kind of idea of commercial insurance against damages came. It's not a problem, but the issue is then that it took a couple hundred years, maybe 200-300 years for that to come to the Muslim world. So by the 1800s, this became part of this is something that's very new. If you look at the history of Islam, this is literally the day before yesterday, this stuff happened. And this is an issue that some of the fuqaha, I'm trying to find the reference. Every time I try to find the reference for you guys, I can't find it. Just give me a second here. Okay, I can't. It's going to come, I think it's a little bit later. What I wanted to tell you is that Shaykh Ibn Abidin, rahimahullah, the great Hanafi Mufti of Damascus, rahimahullah, who wrote the book of Hanafi Fiqh, saw that this was haram. And for the life of me, I can't see why I can't find it. It will come. Let's just look at the contract of the commercial insurance. So the first thing is that it is a two-way contract that's done voluntarily. Of course, there's no crushing, no one's holding a gun to your head to do this. And there is you contracting the company, the insurance company, for this issue. You are going to pay them money, a premium we call it, monthly installment, quarterly, yearly, whatever. They're going to obviously take that money and invest it, and that's key. That's why the modern opinions that permit it, well, it's like the bank situation. They're like, well, the money is really invested, so it's just that's the growth that comes back on the insurance premium when it's called in. It's really a return on the investment. I'm getting ahead of myself. But that money is, let's just say it's taken by the company. Don't worry about what they do with it right now. And then, la qaddar Allah. If God, God forbid something were to happen, like let's use the ship example. My ship is damaged and it sinks and I lose my cargo. You're going to pay me back for the amount that we agreed to. So it's to ensure a potential damage that might happen. I'm speaking in like elementary school, baby language. I mean, if you see some of these insurance contracts, they're very, very complex. This is just making it very simple so you kind of have a scenario in your head to work with. And then you're going to pay the installments. I said that in different ways, either now or in the future, all at once, or quarterly or monthly. And then they're going to pay you that premium out when you call it in. Okay. It's a voluntary transaction by both sides, as I mentioned at the beginning of the lecture, and you're getting something in return, potentially, and there's a time frame that's an essential part of it. Most of the ulama of the modern period did not see this as being permissible, this type of commercial insurance. I found the Ibn Abidin. Let me go back to that. Okay, all it says is that Ibn Abidin did not see that permissible. Okay, so he was like in the 1800s. So now let's come to the more modern, muftis of the last like 30, 40 years, the ones that said it's not permissible, such as Shaykh al-Muti'i, that's Bakhit al-Muti'i, who was one of my favorite ulama, by the way, Mufti of Egypt in the 1920s, Shaykh al-Husayni wa Abu Zahra, al-Qalqayuli, and others who did not permit this for the following reasons. Because it is a transaction based on speculation, al-gharar, the unknownness of the event and the time of the event. It being a type of contract in which there's a type of riba al-fadl with the extra, or nasi'a, different types of riba, of course, because you are selling currency, one amount of money for another amount of money that is a different amount in the future. They also said that it's a type of gambling. This is the camp that says it's haram. And then it's a type of al-bay' al-kali' bil-kali', selling one debt for another debt. So everybody's fatwa is going to be based on their understanding of the scenario. Embedded in what we just said, the camp that says that it's haram, embedded in that is the argument, is the assumption that it's gold and silver or gold and silver backed currency. If you remember way back in the beginning lecture, I said that there's a problem with that because gold and silver are no longer back our current currencies. So that part of the takyif, that part of the understanding of the scenario is incorrect. So you can critique part of the opinion of the ulama that say that it's haram by simply saying, well, that's not the correct understanding. And you would be correct in that critique because it's not. Maybe at the time that those opinions were written, if they were written like in the 1940s or before, yeah, you can say that there's some sketchiness to that. So somebody like al-Bakhit al-Muti'i radiallahu anhu, who died in the 1920s, I think he's like 28 or 29. I mean, it would make sense that he would say something like that because he's a Hanafi, so he's going to go off what Ibn Abidin said, rahimahullah radiallahu anhu. Plus, money is gold and silver. But post that, post the mid-70s into the 80s, that's different. So there's a second group of ulama, and this is held by Sheikh Al-Khallaf, Ali Al-Khafif, Al-Zarqa, and others. And they said it's permissible for the following reasons. First of all, this is based on qiyas. So they made a type of analogous reasoning with things that we have in the Sharia. So first they said, it's like the aqila, it's like the blood money being dispersed amongst your male relatives to lessen your burden. So this is a way of lessening the burden of because imagine if I put all of my money on a cargo, we're using the ship as the example, and I sent it across the sea and I lost it all. Not only did I lose the cargo, I lost the boat and I lost my men. I mean, that's a musibah on top of a musibah on top of a musibah. So they're saying, like in the case of the blood money where the damages can be spread, this is a way of spreading the damages. And they say it's like a type of aqdul muwala that's found in the Hanafi madhab. So the transaction of the insurance transaction is like that transaction found in the Hanafi books. And also another opinion argues that this is like in the Hanafi madhab taking damages or liability rather if something bad happens on the pathway of traveling with goods. And then they were saying that this is like the first kind of insurance, ta'awuni. It's like people working together to help save something bad. There's a third opinion that made a difference between insurance on things like cars and other goods and then insurance on life insurance. They allowed the insurance to be on things that you paid for, but not to be not the insurance on goods. So we have three opinions. One opinion that says that this type of commercial insurance is haram outright. It's speculative, it's ribawi, and we don't do that. The second opinion says it's all permissible because of how you understand it. The third position says we'll allow it on goods, on things that you actually bought. We won't allow it on life. The majority opinion, I don't know statistically what's the majority opinion, but the going opinion in major fatwa offices, like in Egypt's National Fatwa, is the second opinion, is that it's permissible because of their understanding of what it is. So the key for you, the key takeaway other than the opinion, is I want you to understand that the opinion of the school that allows it is based on how they see the scenario. Let me pick that up and explain it in the next clip, inshallah. Okay, so the takyif, how a mufti or a mujtahid understands the scenario, is going to be critical for the quality of their fatwa. Imam al-Ghazali, rahimahullah, he says in Haqiqatul Qawlayn, one of his books, what basically means that the more creative the mujtahid can be, the more robust their fatwa or their ijtihad is going to be rather. So you have to be creative to think about what could happen. What if this? What if that? Understanding the nuances of the situation. If you do that at a high level, your ijtihad will be at a high level, your fatwa will be at a high level because you've understood the nuances of the scenario. If you're like, this looks like, and I am critiquing the opinion that says it's haram, this is ribawi, this is, bay'ul kali' bil kali', then your takyif, your understanding of it is limited. You've limited your ability to understand because there is another way to understand. There's another whole group of ulama that say that it's permissible. One says it's haram, one says that it's permissible. Where is that coming from? Nothing changes in the Sharia about the hurmaniyya of riba or bay' al-kali' bil-kali', or that's all haram. It's their understanding of the transaction. The transaction is not a ribawi transaction. It's, first of all, there's no gold and silver. Second of all, the money is being invested. So if there's an increase in the money in the return, the policy that comes, it's return on the investment, just like bank interest. And then thirdly, we're helping people. People don't want to face these crises without some kind of recourse. And we have things in the Sharia that allow that. So you see the takyif, how you picture the scenario in your mind is key. And then of course there's the third group that said we'll allow it for commercial goods because you've paid for it and they're damages, but we won't allow it on life. There is no doubt that Islamic law promotes that we take care of one another. Okay, so Islamic law doesn't want us to leave us groping in the dark. And there is no doubt that there is something good in the idea, the basic theoretical idea of the insurance. However, there is doubt into the effecability and the permissibility of some of these transactions. I have to be honest, because there are differences of opinions, because some of them look a little bit sketchy. So rather than leave the discussion as saying, well, there's three different opinions, and as I said, the majority of the big fatwa institutions and bodies are saying that it's permissible, there has been a rise of Islamic insurance. What they do, I'm not an expert in them, and I don't want to front like I'm an expert in what I'm about to present, but what they basically do is they change some of the structure of the transaction to give you the same result, but sometimes they remove the term. Let me give you an example of how significant that is. If I say I'm going to go to the bank and take a loan, it's very different than if I say I'm going to the bank to get financing. Financing, a tamwil, means something different in the mind of the faqih than al-qard. Al-qard, in my mind, automatically puts me into the bucket of riba. I'm looking for the riba in it to see if it's haram or halal. But if I go to get financing, a tamwil, well, we have mudaraba in the Sharia. We have the ability to make money and to invest and for the money to go to the sharika and things like that. So, and this is what I said in the beginning about the wrong term. Sometimes we translate things the wrong way. So when it comes to the ta'meen, Islamic insurance, a lot of times it is simply just calling things different terms so that we can understand the permissibility and doability of the transaction. Now, there are some things to consider about how to make this more easy for people. One place is through legislation. If a state, and if Islamic state legislates a certain type of insurance or stipulates a certain type of insurance and certain type of transactions, then it becomes something that's in law, and then we're following the law, because that's going to be backed up by explanation. Well, there's also an idea that the insurance is like a gift. Is that what if I'm going to pay the insurance company, and then the insurance company says at the end of a certain time period I will gift you this amount. We see just changing the name gift from me paying you takes away from one faqih's mind, I'm paying 100 and then getting back 1,000. That's haram because it's in equal amounts. And based on this, a little bit of what I said, and obviously other examples that I'm not necessarily going to get into here, you find a lot of modern Islamic banks or Islamic insurance companies, a takaful, a takamul, they have these different types of names because they will use the Islamic nomenclature of the Islamic transaction to find a way to get you the same result, because the basic concept of we don't want to see our people fall, we don't want to see, widows in poverty, God forbid somebody can't work, there's disability, there has to be a way to help these people out. So there has to be some kind of system to help them out. We all agree to that. There's nobody, no faqih, even the fuqaha that we mentioned above, that say that certain of these transactions are not permissible. None of them are going to say other than or they're going to all agree with that. The question is, how do we get there, and what do we call it? In Islamic insurance situations, we have insurance on damages, which is a type of insurance on things like cars and stuff like that. There's also insurances on people and anything that might happen to them, God forbid, health-wise. And then a type of commercial transaction that impacts the coming and going of commerce. And now there's also Islamic insurances on development projects. So the fact that we have all of these Islamic alternatives comes back to something that I said in the beginning, which it's impossible to function in the modern world without insurance. It's just a fact of life. It's like saying, I'm going to live my whole life and never deal with the bank. I mean, that's just impossible. You have to at some point interact with a financial institution. You can't just live your life based on cash. Maybe one person out of every billion could do that, and they have a very small, localized situation. But in general, that's impossible. You're going to have to deal with it. Same thing with insurance. So the fact that we have all of these insurances, it shows that when we severed the gold standard from the paper money, from the fiat currency, and now we have a huge shoot of wealth because we can just keep printing money and all this inflation. It's not necessarily a good thing. It also can be a bad thing. That has also raised the price point of all of these type of things and the tremendous damage that can happen with the loss of these things. So that has all necessitated that there be some kind of insurance. So there's nothing wrong with the concept of insurance. The question is, what do we call the things and how do we deal with the two parties, the party that wants to be insured and the party that is promising to pay out the premium if and when certain events happen. In my experience, even though I follow the opinion that they are permissible, my experience is that the Muslim world is moving more towards quote unquote Islamic insurance. And that's simply because it's our people, our companies, they're from our part of the world, and they understand the nomenclature and all of that kind of stuff. So we are, even though that middle opinion, or even though there's a difference of opinion, there's opinion that allows traditional types of insurance, it doesn't stop us from moving towards, let's have our own alternatives. Because certainly if we have our own alternatives, there'll be no dispute. Because no one's disputing the permissibility of doing that if we change the term, if we call it a gift and not a premium, or so on and so forth. So I have noticed, especially in the last 10 years, at the time I'm recording now, it's 2024. I mean, the last 10 years, I've definitely noticed that there's a move, especially from Muslim majority countries in the Gulf. I've done a lot of traveling in the Gulf, and I see a lot of these Islamic insurances, and I've looked at a lot of the employment contracts, some of these countries, and they will have the names of these Islamic insurance agencies, Social Security, those type of things. Anyway, so that's the trend that it's moving to. Now you know a little bit about the fiqh behind it. Of course, there's a lot more to be said, but we're just touching a little bit on everything. So we'll put in a pin in it here, and we'll say, Wallahu ta'ala a'la wa a'lam, wa sallallahu ala sayyidina mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Today's class was about insurance, and we looked at the basic structure of the insurance transaction, that there are two parties, one that wants to be insured and one that's going to do the insuring. It's a transaction that's done willfully. No one's coerced. The party that wants to be insured is paying some kind of premium in installments in the event of something bad, usually something negative happening, damages, loss of life, etc., injury. And then the insurance company, when that event happens, it triggers the insurance policy. We said that there are similar type of situations in the classical Islamic law, in the sense that there's a way to spread the damages, lessen the damage, help societies, help taking care of each other. So from the philosophy of the law point of view, from the usuli point of view, yes, Islamic law promotes that very much. And we have no problem with that conceptually. The problem arises when we're talking about certain aspects of commercial insurance, in which some of the ulama of the mid-1800s and forward saw in that a type of speculative transaction on commercial insurance, plus a hint of there being riba in the way that the transaction is conducted. And therefore people like Ibn Abidin and others, very, very capable scholars indeed, forbade and said that it was haram, those types of transactions. Another group of modern scholars saw a different scenario, saw, that it's a different type of transaction. It's not selling debt for debt, it's not ribawi, it's not speculative, it's society trying to help each other. And the reason there are so different opinions on such a core issue is the takif, how the mufti or the mujtahid seeks to make sense of the scenario and understand the scenario and then bring the Quran and Sunnah to opine on the scenario. And then another group will say commercial insurance is halal, life insurance is haram. The major fiqh bodies usually go with the opinion that insurance is permissible. However, there's also a move, excuse me, there's also a move to make Islamic alternative insurance, and that's very prevalent. And those are the main topics we talked about. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.